You aren't just broke, you are being hunted. Your late-night spending is a weaponized psychological hack designed by elite algorithms to keep you trapped in an invisible cage of financial slavery. Watch until the end to finally shatter their mind control matrix before it destroys your life. I have a confession that might make you deeply uncomfortable, but it is the absolute truth about the grand illusion we are all blindly living in. For years, I was the perfect puppet. If you looked at my social media profiles, you would see a man who had it all: a high six-figure salary, tailored designer suits, a gleaming luxury car, and dinners at exclusive restaurants where the menus didn't even list the prices. I was the absolute epitome of the modern dream. But beneath that flawless, glittering facade lay a terrifying, humiliating secret that kept me awake, drenched in cold sweat at 3 in the morning. I was completely, utterly broke. The truth is, every single time the end of the month approached, and that credit card statement notification lit up my phone screen, my stomach physically dropped. I would stare at the suffocating mountain of debt, frantically calculating which essential expense I had to ruthlessly cut just to scrape together the absolute minimum payment. I was nothing but an empty shell wrapped in a billionaire's wardrobe, silently bleeding out financially while smiling for the cameras. Before I pull back the curtain on exactly how this devastating trap was set for me, and how it is quietly destroying your life right now, Advan Gayanaf02 warmly welcomes you to the channel. If you are finally ready to see the invisible strings controlling your every move and want to support me in exposing more of these harsh realities, please hit that subscribe button right now so we have the fiery motivation to continue delivering the unspoken truths you desperately need to hear. Now, I want you to look deep inside your own life and answer this honestly. How many times have you desperately swiped your card for a discounted item, a limited edition pair of sneakers, or a wildly overpriced watch just to reward yourself after a soul-crushing, high-pressure week at work? How many times have you convinced yourself that you deserved a little treat to numb the stress, only to toss that exact item into a dark, dusty corner of your closet 3 days later, never to be touched again? How often have you sworn to yourself that this month would be different, that you would finally build your savings, only to find yourself mindlessly checking out a digital shopping cart at 2 in the morning in a trance-like state? You wake up the next day suffocated by heavy guilt, cursing your lack of willpower, furiously calling yourself undisciplined and foolish. But before you tear yourself apart, here is the chilling reality that the system never wants you to discover. It is not your fault, and your self-hatred is entirely meaningless. You are losing out there because you are fighting a relentlessly unfair, asymmetric war. Imagine this scenario clearly. When you pick up your phone to casually scroll through a shopping app, you are not just interacting with a lifeless glass screen. You are actively stepping into an invisible digital arena, completely unarmed, going head-to-head against thousands of the most elite technology engineers in Silicon Valley. You are battling world-renowned behavioral psychologists who are paid tens of millions of dollars every single year for one sinister purpose. Their sole daily performance metric, their only burning objective when they wake up and go to work, is to find the most ruthless psychological loopholes to hack your brain's chemistry. They methodically study your hidden vulnerabilities to trigger your greed, harvest your deep-seated fears, and ultimately compel you to willingly empty your wallet in a brief, manufactured state of pure euphoria. They have constructed a flawless consumer matrix, guarded by marketing masterminds who whisper sweet, poisonous lies into your ears daily. They have successfully brainwashed an entire generation into believing that reckless spending equals personal style, that crippling debt is merely financial leverage, and that endless consumption is the only valid way to affirm your self-worth. But I am not sitting here today to cry about the unfairness of it all. I am sitting here acting as a rogue hacker who has successfully infiltrated their deeply flawed system. I am going to ruthlessly tear down every single layer of this sickening matrix and expose the century's greatest financial illusions that these massive corporations are weaving around you. Once you clearly see exactly how their psychological death traps are designed, you will finally develop the ultimate immunity. The time for being helplessly played is over. It is time for us to flip the board and take our lives back. To effectively flip that board and shatter their psychological death traps, we must first dissect the very foundation of their mind control, starting with the insidious way they weaponize your own natural instincts against you. You see, the modern consumer matrix does not rely on forcing you to buy things. Instead, it relies on entirely rewriting what you believe you need to survive. Think about the last time you were casually browsing the internet and suddenly saw a countdown timer ticking away on a product you had only briefly thought about, accompanied by a glaring red banner screaming that there were only 2 items left in stock. That is not a coincidence, nor is it a helpful inventory update. It is a calculated, precision-guided missile aimed directly at the primitive part of your brain that associates scarcity with a threat to your survival. The engineers behind these platforms have mapped the human nervous system so thoroughly that they know exactly how to spike your cortisol levels. They create a manufactured panic, a deep-seated fear of missing out, which suddenly overrides your rational thought process. You are not buying that limited edition jacket or that heavily discounted tech gadget because it adds genuine value to your existence. You are buying it to relieve the artificial anxiety they just injected into your bloodstream. And the surveillance network facilitating this is beyond anything George Orwell could have ever imagined. They track the exact milliseconds you hover over an image. They analyze the slight changes in your typing speed when you're stressed, and they know when your biological defenses are at their absolute lowest. Have you ever noticed that the most aggressive, emotionally charged advertisements seem to flood your feed late at night or right after you have had a grueling, miserable day at the office? They know you are exhausted. They know your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for logic and discipline, is completely depleted. In that moment of profound vulnerability, they do not sell you a product. They sell you a temporary, chemical escape. They offer you a cheap hit of dopamine disguised as self-care. And the most tragic part of this transaction is that the euphoria evaporates the second the cardboard box arrives at your doorstep, leaving you feeling emptier than before, desperately craving the next hit. We have become literal addicts in a digital casino where the house never, ever loses, and we are gambling away the most precious resource we possess, our life force. But hijacking your dopamine is only the first phase of their grand design. The second phase is where they silently lock the cage around you and convince you to hand over the key. Once they have successfully conditioned you to crave endless consumption, they introduce you to the most dangerous weapon in the modern financial arsenal: the illusion of purchasing power. I remember walking into a luxury car dealership a few years ago, my heart racing because I knew I did not have the cash in my bank account to afford the gleaming machine sitting on the showroom floor. But the salesman did not care about my actual wealth. He only cared about my monthly cash flow. Within an hour, they had mathematically stretched out a massive, suffocating loan over 84 months, burying the devastating interest rates beneath the psychological comfort of an easily digestible monthly payment. I drove off that lot feeling like an absolute king, completely blind to the fact that I had just signed away thousands of hours of my future labor to a banking institution. This is exactly how the Matrix breeds an entire society of indentured servants who proudly defend their servitude. We have normalized a culture where it is entirely acceptable to finance a cell phone, to put a lavish vacation on a credit card, and to use buy now, pay later schemes for something as trivial as a pair of jeans. They have brilliantly rebranded debt as leverage, and in doing so, they have made financial slavery feel like upward mobility. Every time you swipe that credit card for something you cannot buy in cash twice over, you are literally selling a piece of your future freedom. You are trading your future peace of mind, your ability to quit a toxic job, and your freedom to spend time with your family, all for a piece of depreciating plastic or fabric that you will forget about in 6 months. The puppeteers at the top thrive on this cycle. They need you living paycheck to paycheck, terrified of missing a payment, because a terrified, indebted population is a compliant population. You become trapped in a relentless treadmill of waking up, dragging yourself to a job you despise, and trading your life energy just to service the interest on the chains you bought to impress people you do not even like. I was the poster child for this miserable existence, bleeding out thousands of dollars in interest every year, all while smiling in my tailored suits, desperately hoping nobody would discover that my entire life was a fragile house of cards waiting to collapse. For years, I vehemently defended this invisible cage, convincing myself the bars were made of solid gold, until one freezing Tuesday morning when the entire illusion violently and irreparably shattered. My car had broken down, a completely mundane inconvenience for anyone with a shred of actual financial stability. But for me, it was a death sentence. I sat on the side of the highway in a vehicle that cost more than most people's homes, staring at a repair estimate of $1,200. I opened my banking app, and my checking account balance was $42. Every single one of my premium, heavy metal credit cards was maxed out to the absolute limit. In that freezing, suffocating moment, a wave of profound nausea washed over me. I was a fraud. I was a 30-something man pretending to be a master of the universe, yet I could not even afford to fix my own car without borrowing money from a family member. The humiliation burned through my chest like acid. I looked around at my expensive watch, my designer shoes, and the luxurious leather interior of my financed prison, and for the first time in my adult life, I felt nothing but intense, overwhelming disgust. That breakdown was the greatest gift the universe could have ever given me. It was the brutal rupture in the matrix I desperately needed to wake up. Right then and there, shivering in the cold, I made a radical, uncompromising decision. I was done playing their game. I was done being a highly profitable data point for Silicon Valley and a reliable cash cow for Wall Street. The very next day, I started aggressively tearing down the fake life I had built. I sold the car at a massive loss just to get out of the payment. I listed my designer clothes on secondhand websites. I downsized everything, completely disappearing from the social scene that thrived on mutual financial destruction. The withdrawal was horrific. My ego screamed in agony as I watched my carefully curated image burn to the ground. People I thought were friends suddenly stopped calling when I could no longer split exorbitant dinner bills. But beneath the ashes of my bruised ego, something miraculous began to happen. The heavy, suffocating weight that had been crushing my chest for a decade started to lift, replacing the constant, low-level panic with a strange, unfamiliar sensation. The raw, unfiltered air of genuine freedom. The moment you survive the initial, terrifying shock of pulling the plug on your artificial life, you are left with a beautiful, unwritten blank slate where true wealth can finally be built. Escaping the matrix is not about taking a vow of poverty or living off the grid in a cabin. It is about a fundamental, aggressive shift in how you perceive the value of your own existence. I had to painfully rewire my brain to understand that money is not a tool for acquiring status. Money is the physical manifestation of stored life energy. Every single dollar you save is a bullet in your magazine, a defensive shield against a world that constantly demands your submission. When you stop bleeding your capital out to corporations who do not care if you live or die, you begin to accumulate the only asset that actually matters: options. The ultimate blueprint for immunity starts with a ruthless audit of your desires. Before I buy anything now, I force myself to wait 72 hours. In almost every instance, the manufactured urgency evaporates, and the desire completely vanishes, proving it was nothing but a biological hack injected into my brain by an algorithm. I stopped looking at price tags in terms of dollars and started looking at them in terms of my time. Is this new phone worth 3 weeks of my waking life? Is this luxury car worth 5 years of stress and being bound to a boss I cannot stand? The answer is always a resounding no. True wealth is waking up on a Tuesday morning and realizing that you own your time completely. It is the unshakable confidence of knowing that if everything goes wrong, you have a fortress of financial security that no marketing agency can penetrate. You have to look in the mirror today and decide who is going to write the script for the rest of your life. Will you continue to be a helpless passenger, allowing behavioral psychologists to dictate your self-worth and drain your bank account until you are old, exhausted, and full of regret? Or will you endure the temporary discomfort of stepping out of line, cutting up the credit cards, and aggressively reclaiming your timeline? The puppeteers are terrified of people who no longer care about the illusion of status. A human being who values their peace of mind over consumerism is a glitch in their system that they cannot control. Be that glitch. Strip away the fake armor, face the reality of your numbers, and start building a life that is actually rich on the inside. The Matrix only has power over you as long as you willingly plug yourself in. Pull the cord. Your real life is waiting on the other side. The modern consumer matrix is not just a marketplace. It is a highly sophisticated, algorithmic psychological cage designed to drain your most valuable asset, your life force. By weaponizing manufactured scarcity and exploiting your biological vulnerabilities, corporations hijack your mind, convincing you that artificial dopamine hits are necessities for survival. This relentless conditioning drives you into the invisible chains of debt, where financial slavery is rebranded as upward mobility. We willingly trade thousands of hours of our future freedom for depreciating status symbols, trapping ourselves in a cycle of exhausting labor and perpetual anxiety just to impress people we do not even care about. Breaking free from this illusion requires a brutal but necessary rupture, a total rejection of the fake life built on borrowed money and superficial validation. The withdrawal from this consumer addiction is painful, and your ego will scream as you dismantle your curated image, but the reward is true, unadulterated freedom. Escaping the matrix means aggressively shifting your mindset to view money not as a tool for buying status, but as stored life energy. Every dollar saved is a shield against exploitation and a step toward reclaiming your timeline. True wealth is not defined by luxury cars or designer clothes. It is the absolute ownership of your time, the peace of mind that comes from financial security, and the ultimate power to dictate your own destiny. By unplugging from their game, you become the glitch they cannot control. Money is not a metric of social status. It is the physical manifestation of your stored life energy. Every time you purchase something you do not genuinely need, especially on credit, you are literally selling away fractions of your future freedom and binding yourself to a system that thrives on your perpetual exhaustion. True wealth is never about what you own. It is about having the ultimate luxury of owning your own time and possessing the options to walk away from situations that do not serve you. Implement the 72-hour rule. Before purchasing anything non-essential, force yourself to wait exactly 3 days. You will almost always find that the manufactured, algorithmic urge to buy evaporates once you step away from the screen. Translate dollars into time. Stop looking at price tags in terms of money. Calculate exactly how many hours or weeks of your waking life you must trade at your job to pay for that item. Ask yourself, is this temporary thrill worth a week of my freedom? Audit and eliminate debt. Treat consumer debt as a literal emergency. Downsize your lifestyle aggressively. Sell off the status symbols you cannot afford, and redirect that capital toward buying back your peace of mind. Starve the ego. Stop making financial decisions based on how others perceive you. Unfollow accounts that trigger the fear of missing out, and focus on building a life that feels rich on the inside rather than one that just looks rich on the outside. What is one specific thing you bought in the past just to impress others, and how do you feel about it now? Please share your thoughts and experiences in the comments section below so we can all learn and gain perspective from each other's journeys. If you found value in this message, please hit the subscribe button to support the channel and give us the motivation to keep creating more life-changing content for you.